Hello, good afternoon, everyone. While we are waiting for our fellow participants, the team has posted the virtual background in our chat box, so you can use it, or you can also use your school or country's virtual background, as what I see here from Malaysia. Uh, Thank you for joining us. Once again, you can open the chat box and see that we have copied there the virtual background. You can just download it and use it uh, so we can have a nice photo session also later. Thank you for joining us. And we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes for our fellow participants to join us this afternoon. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I hope you are doing well today. My name is John Joshua Mendoza Duldulao, or you can call me Josh from Simeo SEPS. And I'm delighted to be your MC for the second training session on the capacity building program for school lunch improvement under the promotion of well-being in schools in Southeast Asia initiative of Simeo SEPS supported by Simeo uh, Rec, Simeo RecFon and Simeo TropMed network as well. It's also funded by Chevron and Southeast Asia One Health University Network or COON. So welcome and before we start our training session this afternoon, I would like to remind you to please make sure to check your audio and video. For those who would like to keep their cameras on, you are very much welcome to turn on your camera. But if you have low Wi-Fi, we can understand if you have to keep your camera off. And I would like to remind also, in terms of the naming convention, please follow the format as you see on your screen. And if ever you'd like to use our virtual background, we have copied it in our chat box, so you can download it and use it later, especially in our photo sessions. You can use the chat box for communication, and if you would like to say something related to the topic, so that when our speaker later, she could refer to it when she is discussing our topic this afternoon. And just in the, I am sure you know this, the meeting controls there, and this is the way how you choose your virtual background for those who'd like to use the virtual background as sent in the chat box. So there, and yeah, again, in the renaming, please put your country and then your school name in short, and then your name. So, and for group login, if you are in one conference room with a computer, you can just put the country initials and your school name in short as well. So I hope this is easy, and we can refer to it later during the discussion for ease of pronouncing or recognizing your names and your country and school. So there, if you don't have any further technical questions, we'll now proceed to our session. So, but before that, I just want to go quickly with you over the agenda. So we will, we have now in the section where I'm introducing the session, and then we will follow up later by interactive warm-up activity. Then our distinguished speaker will provide us an insightful overview of the relationship between nutrition and school performance. And then afterwards, we will open the floor for questions to address any of your concerns, inquiries, and it will be followed by a summary of today's key takeaways and a reminder to finish a post-training feedback form, and that will serve also as the attendance check and the next session. So without further ado, let's get started. But before that, I'd like to invite everyone to open up their cameras for a photo session. So we have 55 participants this afternoon. Hello, hello, our participants from Brunei, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from the Philippines,
Hello, hello.
from Thailand, from Cambodia. So thank you for joining us. Yes. So are we all ready? We will take, I think, three shots. So um, now please hold your smiles. Ready? One, two, three. Okay, that would be the first shot. Second one. One, two, three. Third one. One, two, three. So nice smiles, everyone. We seem to be a lot excited for our session this afternoon. So to kick off and get everyone started and engaged, we have prepared a fun warm-up activity using Mentimeter. So I hope most of us know already how to use Mentimeter. So please grab your mobile phone. So if you're not using your mobile phone for this Zoom session, please get your mobile phone, and we will flash on the screen the QR code, which we will use for our warm-up activity. And for those who are not using their mobile phones for this warm-up activity, we will copy in the chat box the link to our pre-session activity warm-up. You can just click on the link that we are posting now in the chat box, so everyone could participate. So we have now 62 participants in the room. So we're expecting all of them to be in the Mentimeter. So I would like to request my colleague Konoy if she can raise her hand if we have already a lot of participants in the Mentimeter. So once again, please scan the QR code on the left side of your screen for those who are using their mobile phones. And for those who are not on their mobile phones, you can click on the link in the chat box. I would also want to remind everyone that our session today is recorded, so we can refer to it later when we want to review some of the sessions. And also, we have an AI companion for transcription, so we hope you can use it, especially to transcribe the English texts. Okay. So based from the thumbs up and the hearts in the lower right hand corner, we have 33 of now 30, yes. So okay. I guess we have a sufficient number. So for those who cannot access the QR code or the Mentimeter link, you can also type in the chat box, and I will read it for you. So we can now proceed to our warm-up activity. So first question. So we'd like to know what is the usual breakfast of students at your school. In the Mentimeter, there are three responses allowed. So please let us know what you observe as the usual breakfast of students at your school. Okay, the responses are already coming. So, so for those in the Mentimeter, just fill in three responses, what you observe as the usual breakfast of students in your school. For those who cannot access, you can also type in our chat box and I will read it for you. And we know this word cloud, right? We know how it works. It means that the bigger the word is, the more responses that it got in the Mentimeter. So right now, what we're seeing is that um, most of the students from our schools are eating bread usually at during breakfast. So it's bread, it's milk, it's rice. Uh, all right, so you can take a screenshot of this, and this is a good um, information. So we have yellow rice, fried rice. Uh, okay, milk and rice. So milk, rice, bread, egg. Okay, those are the most common. So we asked this question because normally the breakfast is an indicator of good nutrition in our school, and we all know, or maybe later we will be enlightened with the relationship between the nutrition and the academic performance of students, especially at the primary level. So thank you for joining the first question. Now we proceed to the second question. So we have listed 6 practices on the screen. Which one do you believe is most commonly followed by students at your school? So I will read it. Number 1 is eat plenty of vegetables and fruits. 2 is drink sufficient and safe water. 3 is reduce consumption of sweet and salty foods and fatty foods as well. 4th is be physically active. 5 is reading food labels. And 6, have breakfast every day. So, Okay, while you are all responding to the Mentimeter, again, for those who cannot access the Mentimeter, now the question is from the 6 practices, which one do you believe is most commonly followed by students at your school? So meaning the students in our school are doing it mostly. So do we think that they eat plenty of vegetables and fruits? Do we think they drink sufficient and safe water? Do we think they reduce consumption of sweet and salty foods, or physically active, read food labels, have breakfast every day? Okay. So yeah, I think we have sufficient responses already. So we can say that from Cambodia, there's supposed to be one response to eat plenty of vegetables and fruits. But mostly, we have 19 dots in the Mentimeter, meaning there are 19 participants who believe that most commonly our students have breakfast every day. And in our chat box, there's additional one more from Indonesia. So most commonly it's having breakfast every day, and second, very close to it, is drinking sufficient and safe water. This is really very important. So the last question would be the opposite of this question. So same set of 6 practices, which one do you believe is the least commonly followed practice by your students in your school? So if they have breakfast every day, so what is the least commonly followed practice? Yeah. From Indonesia, Mr. or Miss Frankie, saying that least commonly practice is to read food label. This is interesting. So, and we're talking here of primary level, right? So a very young age. So we see here that the response is most of our students does not eat or do not eat plenty of vegetables and fruits. Then next is most of our students do not read food labels. And then another health and nutrition concern is most of our students consume sweet, salty, and fatty foods. All right. So thank you very much for joining our uh, warm-up activity. So anyone would like to share something from this warm-up activity before we proceed to our uh, session? So you can raise your hand and I can recognize you just to say something about our quick warm-up activity. Or you can just unmute yourself and say something. So Mr. Kamarul is saying that this has been an interesting activity. Thank you that you found it interesting. Also, yes, the results are. So who else would like to share something? Okay, so as we process it, let me now thank everyone for participating. And this is just a preview of the exciting things we'll be exploring today. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker for today. She is a recognized expert in community nutrition and is currently the manager of Community Development and Partnership Unit at Simeo Regional Center for Food and Nutrition, or Simeo Recfon, in Indonesia. With her extensive research background and practical experience, she will shed light on how balanced nutrition plays a crucial role in enhancing not only children's health, but also their academic performance. She has a doctorate from the Faculty of Medicine in Universitas Indonesia, which or where she was also a lecturer. And now let me welcome and give the floor, our virtual floor to Dr. Lu Ade Ari Wiradnyani to discuss with us the overview of balanced health nutrition and its relationship to academic performance.
Yep.
Dr. Ade,
Yep.
the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Jos. In Bahasa Indonesia, we call Sir as Pak. So yeah, hopefully you don't mind if I call you Pak Jos. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for facilitating the warming up sessions that we have with the 3 questions. I'm so happy with all the responses from the participants, the teachers. Maybe we will have some discussions to the questions and to the response given by the participants in the relevant slides later on during my talk. Yeah, I will be sharing screen. Oh, moment. I will do the sharing screen, but hopefully I will not be having any technical problems. In case I do have one, I will seek for assistance from the committee because I have shared the file with you, yeah, Pak Jos, yeah. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to all of the participant teachers coming from Southeast Asia countries. I see that some are from Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam, and Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Thailand. Do I miss to mention any other? Is there any participants coming from Laos or Vietnam? So welcome and thank you for joining these sessions. Hopefully in the following 30 minutes, I will share the overview of balanced nutrition for school children's health and academic performance. Sometimes when we use the term balanced nutrition, people may have questions what kind of foods that are considered to give us balanced nutrition, because in fact we do not consume nutrients, we consume foods. Yeah, so we do have concern about fulfilling the needs for certain nutrients, like for calcium. We want our children to have adequate calcium intake, and in order to do so, what kind of foods that should be recommended to be consumed by them and how much. Yeah, so let's discuss that, and I try my best not to use so many technical terms because this session should be the practical one and the thing that are quite familiar in your daily life. Yeah, in especially dealing with the school children. I organize my sharing into 4 subtopics. The first one is nutrition problem among school age children in Southeast Asia, because I think we should be aware of this issue, because sometimes we think that nutrition is more relevant to baby or pregnant women or elderly, because in general school age children looks healthy, most of them very healthy, very active, very productive, but we also have to know that actually there are nutritional problems that we should be aware of. The second one, what are the nutrition requirements for the school children? to be healthy and productive. And the third one, like I mentioned before, because we do not consume nutrient, we consume food. So that's why our government have a guideline which is food-based. Yeah, so we call it food-based dietary guidelines. What should be eaten and how much. And the last one, I also want to share a brief challenges to implement the nutrition guidelines. We do have guidelines. Every country have their own guidelines, but we have to also acknowledge that quite significant proportions of school children, they cannot really implement the guidelines as expected. And maybe I would like to some of the brief strategies how to minimize the challenges using a school as the setting. Because all of the participants are teachers. So when we talk about school children, then the setting is the school. Yeah. So the first one, nutritional problem among school age children in Southeast Asia. Maybe I should start the discussion with one big question. Why nutrition in school age children? Yeah. The first one, because in a full life cycle, starting from pregnancy and then infancy and toddler, and then school age children, adolescents, young adult, and then elderly. Each of those life cycle, we have to make sure that adequate nutrition is seen as a key for a healthy life, yeah, including school age children. And if we look into the number of the school age children in the populations in every country, I believe that the age 6 until, if it is primary school children, then maybe 6 until 12 years old. And if it is adolescent, junior and high school children, usually it is 13 until 18 years old. In the demographic populations, in the demographic profile of each country, their number is very large, meaning that if we can ensure that they are healthy, it means that a large proportions of our populations are healthy. So that is a good thing. The third point is building a habit is not easy. Yeah, I bet all of us agree that building a habit is not easy. But once the habit is established, it will last. Yeah. So that's why people say if we introduce a good habit since early age, it will last until adulthood. Yeah, like having breakfast every day, do not litter, consume sufficient vegetables. So it will last until adulthood. And another point is because if we want to reach school age children, it is considered quite easy to reach them, which is through school, especially because in every Southeast Asia country, the school enrollment rate is very high. I'm familiar with Indonesia's case. More than 98% of children are in the primary school, enroll in primary educations, while for senior high school, the percentage is a bit lower, but still quite high, 78, 77%. So that's a good way to reach the children through school. And number 5, unfortunately, many national survey in Southeast Asia country, they also show us that our children have a variety of malnutrition. It can be either undernutrition, being thin, given the height, or overnutrition, the opposite one. So excess of weight given the height, and also hidden hunger, which is usually due to the deficiency in micronutrient. We cannot really see it physically, but actually they experience anemia, for example, which later on will influence the learning ability. In the most recent publications from the Asian Secretariat in 2023, just recently, last week, we can see here that the problem of overweight and obesity is much higher than the problem of undernutrition, thinness in most of country, except for Myanmar and Vietnam, and also Cambodia, where the underweight, undernutrition and overnutrition are a bit similar. But in Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, overweight and obesity is much more problematic than the undernutrition. Yeah, both are, we should manage both. Yeah, we are not saying that it's better to have overnutrition problem than undernutrition problem, because each of the malnutrition have their own consequences. Anemia, we can see here that the prevalence of anemia are also quite high, especially in Indonesia and also in Myanmar. Yeah. If we want to go further, what are the causes of malnutrition in school-age children? Actually, we have what we call as direct causes and indirect causes. The direct causes are the one in blue box, inadequate diet, or the other way around, yeah, excess diet, especially calorie intake. The second causes is disease. If we have frequent disease, so it will influence our nutritional status. And the third causes is physical activity, because the aim is to have balance between energy intake and energy expenditure. So if we have so much calorie and we are lacking of physical activity, so all of the calorie, the major amount of calorie will be stored in our body as fat. And if it continuously occur, then we may then be at risk of overweight, obesity. The green box multiple system, it represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 systems which are believed to indirectly influence the malnutrition. For example, food system. In the area or in the certain group of community where access to food is limited, then there will be a higher risk of having malnutrition compared to the area where access to food is not a problem. And education system as well. We do believe that being educated is a key for almost everything. Yeah, people with a good education, they have a more opportunity to have a better income, a better life. They also have a better understanding on information, including information about nutrition. So that's why education system is also part of the key systems that is believed to influence malnutrition among school-age children. Health system as well, yeah, access to health facilities are very important, including in like there will be obligatory immunization for primary school children. So immunization will prevent them from certain diseases. So it will influence the blue box in the middle, the disease. Yeah. So if the child is have less frequently ill, so they have a less risk of having undernutrition, for example. Hopefully, these illustrations is easy to understood by everyone. Breakfast and risk of obesity. There was a review, a very well known review in 2019. An expert tried to review the association between breakfast habit among school children to risk of overweight and obesity. They wonder whether or not the tendency to skip breakfast have something to do with the risk of obesity, because the prevalence of obesity tend to increase among school-age children, while at the same time, the prevalence of skipping breakfast also very high. So they start wondering whether there is an association between these two. So it turns out that from the review, the children and adolescents who skip breakfast is found to be more likely to be or become overweight or obese. People may wonder why it is so, because it seems that if you skip breakfast, you have less energy intake, so your risk of obesity should be less. But the study found the other way around. Then they try to analyze further, and it turns out that those who skip breakfast, they are easily to feel hungry during the break time, and therefore they are more prone to overeating, either during during the lunch break or during the first break. So they tend to then snacking. Yeah. Unfortunately, the snacking, their habit is to have less healthy snacks, like having sugary drinks or sweet foods, because they are hungry because they skip breakfast. So that's why the study confirmed that skipping breakfast is one of the risk factor of being overweight, obesity, especially among school children and adolescents. Another issue is breakfast and academic performance. So we may, I think all of us believe that in the morning, like the analogy is a vehicle, our car, yeah. If we want the car well functions, we have to make sure that there are sufficient gas. So if we take car as an example to how our body works. So in the morning, in order to be productive at school and have a good concentration at school, our body need a gas. So in this case, gas refer to energy and nutrients, of course, protein, fat, zinc, vitamin B, vitamin A, vitamin C, all of the vitamin and minerals. So another study, they also review 36 study. They make a summary. Yeah, they try to look at the findings from the 36 studies. They found that having a good breakfast, a good here means regular, every day, and a good quality. It will give us a positive effect on the academic performance. The academic performance was assessed by using two indicators, the school grades and also the scores in achievement tests. Yeah, but we have to remember that when we say when we talk about breakfast, it always refers to two things. The first one is the regularity. It have to be every day. The second one is the quality of the breakfast. Yeah, so as much as possible, try to have a good breakfast to start a day. Good breakfast always refer to a variety of food groups and also adequate energy. So that's for the first topic, yeah, nutritional problems and the drivers, the causes of malnutrition among school age children. And now let's move to the second subtopics, nutrient requirement for school age children. So what nutrient and how much nutrient do school age children need to stay healthy and productive at school? I think all of us know that we have two types of nutrient, macro and micro. Judging from the name, macro is the nutrient that we need in a higher amount, while micronutrient we need in smaller amount, yeah, lower amount than macronutrient, but they have a very critical functions to make our metabolism work well. There are three macronutrients that are important, and they have their own tasks. They have their own duty in our body: carbohydrate, protein, and fat. While micronutrient, we have two groups under micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. I put examples of the common minerals. We have a lot of minerals, but I don't put each of them in this box because there are plenty. So I put only some of them that are quite common, like for example, iron, zinc, calcium, and natrium or sodium. So each of these nutrients have a specific roles, and their roles cannot be replaced by other nutrients. So that's why we have to make sure that we have that our foods that we consume contain all of these nutrients, and they will work together to maintain the optimal function of all systems in our body. The questions now is how are we sure, yeah, how to answer that our foods really contain all of the nutrients that we need in sufficient amount? It's of the government, yeah, Malaysian government, Philippines, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, especially the Ministry of Health in each country. We have our what we call as recommended nutrient intakes. Usually it consists of how much energy is needed for school children, how much calcium, how much iron, how much dietary fiber, how much many things, yeah, iron, magnesium, selenium. And if we see at the table, it is quite complicated because there will be a lot of numbers there, and it is specific for certain age group and specific for male and female. So that's why if the community, if the government want to promote healthy diet by promoting RNI with all the complicated numbers in the table, maybe it is just too complicated for most of our community. Even for us, nutritionists, sometimes we also have problem to understand the table in short. So that's why when the government want to promote healthy diet to the community, they do not use this table because it is just too complicated and it is not necessary. So that's why they come up with nutrition guidelines, yeah, for public purposes, for lay people who is not nutritionist. We call it as nutrition guidelines. So the RNI, all the complicated numbers, then is translated into food because we consume food, not nutrient. And the guideline is usually called food-based dietary guideline. So the guideline, which is the basis is the food, yeah, food group. It usually consists of two things. The first one is nutrition messages, and the second one is food guide. So in the food guide, usually it use illustrations to make it easily understood by majority of populations. And some countries in Southeast Asia, I access in the FAO. FAO is one of the UN United Nations agency that is dealing with food and agriculture. In its website, I put the website. You can also download it because it is a public domain. They have informations on the food guide available in some countries in Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. So if you have access to this link, please do so. But I have, I take some of the food guide. Maybe I should go with this one, yeah. This is the food guide. Food guide is a guide, the visualization of the recommendations, what kind of foods to be consumed for a day. Yeah. The left one, the one in blue is for Filipino, and the right one is for Malaysians. So if you see here, basically they are similar, yeah. In the first level is food groups which are considered as carbohydrate source rich foods. So it is usually our staple. So it is usually in terms of the portions and the amount of the foods to be consumed, then it is the majority, it is a large portion of our meal consists of our staple. And then the second level is apa tuh? Vegetables and fruits, yeah, they are rich in vitamins and mineral and as well as dietary fiber. And then the next level, in the upper level, is the animal and plant-based protein. Our dishes: chicken, tofu, tempeh, legumes, egg, milk, seafoods, beef, and then while at the top is the food groups, or actually it is not a food groups, yeah, it is condiments that's supposed to be consumed in the least amount. I mean, we have to limit the consumption, so that's why the amount is the smallest. So in the top of the, if we can call it as a pyramid, so in the top of the pyramid. So if anyone from Malaysia or from the Philippines, if you want to also have additional informations about your own food guide, please do so. You can put it in the chat box, or if you don't mind, you want to unmute and have a direct comment, I will be so happy as well. Well, the next, this is for Cambodia. Cambodia have a food guide for public, the one in the left, and they also have a specific guide for school children in the right. I don't really understand because everything is written in specific letters for Cambodian. So our participants from Cambodia, you are very, I guess you are familiar with this. Actually, the message are similar, yeah. The foods should be varied. A variety of foods are the key. And the amount is, yeah, the ones in the bottom is the staple foods, source of our carbohydrate. And then goes up smaller portions, fruits and vegetables, and then animal or plant-based protein. And also the last one, the group, the food that should be limited in their consumption is salt, sugar, and oil or fat. While 3 countries in this slide, Vietnam in the left, Indonesia in the middle, and Thailand in the right. You may wonder why, if you look into the previous food guide, all of them are pyramid, and the level, the bottom is always the one with the larger proportions, getting less, and getting less. While Thailand have a quite opposite pyramid. It is inverted pyramid. So any participant from Thailand, if you want, if you would like to have share your understanding about this, and you want to explain it to your colleague from other Southeast Asia country, please do so. Maybe in the list of participants, I can identify our colleague from Thailand. I see some. So anyone from Thailand? I'm sorry if it is Mr. or Mrs. Some colleague from Thailand, please. Because your food guide is very unique, yeah. Because other country they have a pyramid, while your country it is inverted pyramid. So anyone? Okay, because in the pyramid, in other pyramid, at the top, it is the kind of food that should be we have to limit the consumption, yeah. But for some people, sometimes they understand the top is the best. So that is one of the idea of having it inverted in Thailand. That is one of them, yeah. So this is for the food guide. Now I would like to show you the nutrition messages, because I see food-based dietary guideline. There are 2 types, yeah, food guide and nutrition messages. So the pyramid is the food guide, and this is the nutrition messages. I try to list down all the nutrition messages, and I put a check mark here, which country have a specific message in their nutrition messages. If you see here, there are a lot of similarities across country, especially for number 1 until number 7, and also number 9 to consume milk. But there are some specific messages, like in Indonesia, we have nutrition message on having breakfast every day and reading food label, like in Malaysia. In the Philippines, you have a nutrition messages to manage stress. And in Indonesia, we also have nutrition message for washing hands with soap and running water. But there are a lot of similarities, yeah, like be physically active, attain normal body weight, consume milk. eat clean and safe food, reduce sweet, salty, and fatty foods, eat fish, eggs, plenty vegetables, fruits, and variety of foods. Okay, the last section is challenges and strategies. Although we have a very clear recommendations, but we have to acknowledge that it is not easy for school-age children to follow the recommendations. Like you have list down during our warming up sessions at the beginning of these sessions, you highlight that the students mostly they do not eat plenty fruit vegetables, they don't read food label, and also it is maybe difficult for them to reduce the consumption of sugar, salt, and fat foods. Yeah, it is challenging. Like for example, because even if the student have the knowledge, the food environment at school and home is not supportive. There are many unhealthy foods sold in the school canteen with a very affordable price. So it is very easy to get and very tasty. And the school health program at schools, sometimes the program focus on curative. Like if the people get sick at school, they do something to treat the students who is ill, but less about preventive activity. And sometimes if we do nutrition education, sometimes it is not thorough and it is less organized. So it is maybe the messages are very not really practical. Like for example, eat healthy. So children have less idea how to do it. And we also have to acknowledge in some community, they are facing economic constraints that limit their access to foods, especially the healthy foods. Okay, this is the last one, last slide that I have. There are some tips or strategies how to implement nutrition education at school, because we really want to achieve this nutrition literacy. Nutrition literacy is a degree to which individuals, in this case our children, our school children, have the capacity to obtain, to process, and to understand nutrition informations, and also skills to make appropriate nutrition decision, to make a good actions toward nutrition. We really want our nutrition education at school really towards that goal, yeah, to equip the students with knowledge and skill to choose what is good for them. So the first tip is to start with the most feasible. So sometimes we aim very high, but we are overwhelming with all the plan because we plan to do everything at once. So let's start with the most feasible one, and then we can expand gradually. The second tips is to make a plan. What activity, when, by who, and how to do it. Will it be once a week or twice a week? And we should optimally use the existing resources. So let's start simple. Use what is available at school. And the fourth tips is try to create a regular activity. Although it is simple, but if it is done in regular basis, so the message will be repeatedly exposed to the students, it will stick with them, and it is more likely to be internalized and then become a trigger for them to try and then to maintain the habit. And the last one is to do education, to do the nutrition education by experiential learning. So learning by doing. They learn by doing it directly, by practice it directly, not only disseminating knowledge. So as the take-home messages, yeah, we may not necessarily be able to cope all the challenges at once. However, it is believed that if nutrition program at school improve, then environment at school will also be more favorable, and it will trigger the students to start doing it. And then they will, once they start doing it, they will have confidence and enjoy the new practices. And the last one, hopefully it will build a new healthier habit. I think that's all of my sharing for this session. Thank you very much. I give back the screen to Mr. Josh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ade, for such an informative and insightful presentation. We've learned a lot of nutrition and also academic performance relationship from your presentation. So at this point, we have some time for questions. I know it's 2 minutes before the supposed close of session at 4, but we'd like to have some more time with you if you will please allow it. Let's have a short extension after this, and we will entertain questions from the participants. Would you like to open your video and your mic, and you may want to ask a question or share something. So, or please raise your hand so we can queue the participants who'd like to ask question. Okay, so I see one question here from Brunei. So, Dr. Ade, if you could please help us respond to it. And for those who have questions, you may type in the chat box or raise your hand. So from Brunei, does the recommendation of drinking 8 glasses of water apply to people of all ages? Or is there a specific formula or guideline to determine how much water someone should drink? Dr. Ade? Dr. Ade?
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Oh, is my voice clear?
Now it is. Yeah, but earlier we can't hear you. So the
Okay,
question
okay,
from Brunei is about the recommendation of drinking 8 glasses of water. Does it apply
okay.
to people of all ages?
Okay, so thank you for the questions. So I can only refer to the recommendation for Indonesian, yeah, because that's what I'm familiar with. But it may be also relevant for other country. So drinking enough water, in for general populations is often referred to it minimally eight glasses a day. So actually, if the water here is the plain water, not a sugary drink, there is no such the you know excess intake of water is a very rare condition. So there is a very rare that people have a problem in terms of intake too much water. If we refer to plain water, yeah, not sugary drink, because our body have a very efficient water metabolism, and our body doesn't store water. So if we drink more than we used to do, then we go to toilet more often, and it is very okay. So usually minimally 8 glasses of water apply for many age groups, especially when for primary school age. But before that, for example, for under 5 children, they have a smaller recommended amount of water intake, of course. But in most cases, they indeed refer to minimally 8 glasses of water. But if you wish to have more, then because 8 glasses is the minimum amount, yeah, recommended. If you want to have more, so it is of course is okay. But as long as it is a plain water, not sugary drink, because if it is sugary drink, then the sugar will create problem. And if it is caffeinated drink, such as, for example, coffee, drinking coffee is good in a way that it provide us water. But the problem is coffee have caffeine, and it is considered as diuretic. Diuretic means it triggers you to urinate. So it means that the water that you consume will just pass by your body and then pass it just more quickly than it should be. So if we refer to water, please refer it to a plain water because it is much healthier. Thank you, Pak Jos.
Thank you, Dr. Ade. While we're waiting for those who'd like to raise their questions uh, live, there's another comment that I find interesting here in our chat box. They say that from is it Cambodia? Yes, KH. Currently, the people, particularly in the rural community, are just only know their body need the nutrients, but they are limit access it due to food safety accessing. So this is a good point, Dr. Adi would like to add on it about food safety. Dr. Adi, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Yes, I was muted. Thank you, Pak Jos. So the term healthy food always refer to two things. Yeah, the first, it should be safe, and the second one, it should be nutritious. Yeah, so healthy always in both aspect. Yeah, safe and nutritious. In terms of food safety, yes, for school children, usually the issue of food safety is the snacking. Yeah, for Indonesian case, for example, there are a lot of snacks. They are very eye-catching. Use very colorful because they really want to attract the children to buy. But the problem is they use not a food coloring agent. Instead, they use another coloring agent, which is usually cheaper, and they can produce a very striking color. And usually, it is successfully attract the children to buy. Another issue is in addition to the coloring agent is the use of apa? Food preservative. So because some of the food seller, they really want to extend the shelf life of the foods. So they use the forbidden, let's say, food preservative. That is not to mention safety in terms of biological hazard, yeah, from microbes. If, for example, the ice cube usually, because iced tea is very popular, and then the ice cube sometimes they do not use the sufficiently boiled water, so then the safety issue indeed become a problem. The second issue, yeah, of course, about the quality of food. If it is safe, but it is not nutritious, like for example, yeah, like iced tea, they use a safe water to make the ice cubes. And also they use the boiled water for the tea. However, they add too much sugar, for example, then we cannot consider that that is a healthy choice for the students, Pak Jos. I think that's my explanation. Hopefully it answered the inquiry from our colleague from Cambodia.
Yes, actually, our colleague had a follow-up, but you have also responded to it on in terms of water safety. But you've answered it, Dr. Ade. We have, I think I have time for last two questions. Uh, let us take it first, Dr. Ade, and then I will call you after the two questions. So Earlier, Mr. Frankie from Indonesia has a raised hand, so we can now recognize Mr. Frankie, and then there's another question. So I'll take the two questions first before I recognize Dr. Ade again.
Yep. I see there is a questions about what is the best time for children to take breakfast. Yeah, Pak Just, yeah.
Yeah, that's the second one. So, but the first one, I think, Mr. Frankie, I would like to ask a question earlier. Please go ahead.
Okay. Is my voice clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, Ibu Ade, thank you so much for the explanation. I remember back in Kupang, it's a very remote areas in Kupang, where we have kinds of, preparing food for children in our school, but it's mostly like every twice a week. But yeah, based on your explanation, we need someone who really expert in nutrition, put it in the school, because some of the schools in Kupang we have that kinds of activity, but we limit on having expertise in nutrition. So mostly we only use like staple food, like bananas and kinds of ubi, and then we put that for students, and that's basically something that it's more, for me, it's more carbohydrates and it's less than the other nutritions of food. Yeah, so I think we need put someone who really expertise in doing that thing, so we can prepare the food, like full of nutrition, like proteins and some of the nutrition to the children. But thank you so much for the explanation. I just want to just confirm that things.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Frankie. Indeed, that in some areas, they face more challenges in terms of access to foods. Like you mentioned in East Nusa Tenggara in Indonesia, some areas are uh, uh, they have experience of a long dry season, ya Pak ya.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, a long dry season. So in that case, sometimes access to foods are more challenging compared to other part of Indonesia. So that will certainly impact the food availability and accessibility. And then, like Pak Frankie mentioned, usually the typical foods available for consumptions, for example, banana and sweet potato.
Yeah,
more into carbohydrates, but hopefully sweet potato, the leaf of the sweet potato is a very good vegetables, vitamin and mineral source. So hopefully, in addition to consuming the sweet potato, the tubers, they also make use of the leaves because it is a very good source of locally available food source for vitamin and mineral, hopefully. Yeah, Pak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ade, the next question is, what is the best time for children to take breakfast? And will the time they consume the food will influence their growth? Maybe that's what it means. So, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me if I again use the case of the school feeding program in Indonesia. Yeah, some of the school we once have a school breakfast program, national school breakfast program hosted by Ministry of Education. It gave breakfast to the childrens, and Indonesian expert believe that it should be consumed before 9 in the morning, because one of the aim of breakfast for school children is really into their learning ability and also their concentrations, because we actually we are fasting, yeah, from the time we go to sleep in the night before until in the morning. So we are fasting while we have to be ready with all the activities in the day. So breakfast is the only source of energy and nutrients. So it is recommended to have it before 9 to get the optimal benefits of having breakfast.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ade. Everyone, can we please give a virtual round of applause to our speaker? Thank you for sharing with us the expertise and the insights that you've had for nutrition, for academic performance, and for all the food tips that you've mentioned. So, uh, thank you. And before we proceed to the next part, I just want to read and recognize the two more comments that came up just a little bit earlier. Personally, in Brunei, the general public is pretty aware of the importance of a balanced diet. Nevertheless, due to global price increases and a fast-paced lifestyle, sadly, many parents rely on processed foods and are heavy in sugar and salt because it is inexpensive. That's true. And not, I think this is also common in other countries. From Indonesia, there's one school, especially in Palu, provide a schedule for providing snacks and meals every 1 week. For example, Monday, bread and milk, Wednesday, tubers, and then Fridays, two types of fruit. Uh, I think I would request Dr. Ade to please respond on the chat box on the question, what role? So, because we won't have much time anymore, so please just chat the response to the question on what role does the government play in controlling the unhealthy food like crackers and junk food that sell in supermarket. Those are really very engaging questions. Thank you everyone for all your participation, for your engaging questions, for your comments. And of course, we thank Dr. Ade for the thoughtful responses. So now we'll proceed to the summary of our learning today. As we approach the end of our session, I would like to request my colleague from Simioceps, Ms. Piapa Suangavatin, Program Officer, Simioceps, to provide us the key takeaways from today.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you so much, Dr. Ade, for the very fruitful and very informative presentation. And I hope that our participant now, having the better understanding about nutrition. And I did some summary. I hope that everybody see my screen right now. So many documents now. So let me close some first. Okay, so let me start the presentation, the summary of your presentation. Okay, from your presentation, I can group the area of your presentation into 5 areas. The first one is importance of early nutrition habits. Second is about the prevalence of the malnutrition. And third, food-based dietary guidelines. And fourth, challenges in nutrition implementation. And the last one about the strategies for improvement. And for the first one, we could summarize that adequate nutrition during school age is very important as habits form early influential for the long-term health and well-being, meaning that they need to start when they were very young. And for the second part about the prevalence of the malnutrition, we understand that the malnutrition in school age children is significant in Southeast Asia, which issues ranging from the undernutrition and hidden hunger to rising rate of obesity. And for the third issue is about the food-based dietary guidelines. We see that your example that Southeast Asian countries have developed the specific food-based dietary guidelines for all the countries, and emphasizing is quite similar. But however, there are particular areas that based on the local ingredients and local agriculture of the country that they focus. So, but basically, they include a variety of foods, plenty of fruits, vegetables, and reducing intake of the unhealthy food. And the fourth area is the challenges in nutrition implementation. We found that key challenges include the inadequate food environment at the school and home, and limited access to quality nutrition education and economic constraint. So sorry, someone just tell me I forgot to open the presentation mode. And the last one is about the strategies for improvement. I summarize that we need to enhance the nutrition literacy, create the supportive school environment, and engage students in the experimental learning activities and build the eating behavior habit. Right. Now, this is the 5 tips for the nutrition education that you suggest to our participants. Start with the most feasible activities with your students and teachers. Make a plan and optimize the existing resources, creating regular activities, and learning by doing. This is the most important. And I would like to show the keywords that I grabbed from your presentation. So this could be a good summary for the participant learning as well. We learned about the malnutrition. We understood in the past that malnutrition, it could be undernutrition, but now you give us very clear explanation that not just only undernutrition, but including overnutrition. And we learned about the hidden hunger that can create the weakened immunity and the disease that could be happen to our students. And we learn about the multiple system influence that including the food system, health system, water sanitation system, social protection system, and education system. This is the most important that we need to get our young learners to understand the nutrition at the early age and including the parents. And we also learn about the habitual breakfast, which is including frequency and quality that we need to provide to the student. And we learn about the macronutrients, which including meat, carbohydrate, and the egg protein. And we also learn about the micronutrition, which is all vitamin. And we understand about the different food guide from different countries. So I think that is my summary of the key learnings for this session. Josh, may I turn the floor back to you?
Thank you very much for the comprehensive summary, Ms. Piapa. And it's really a good reminder for all of us of our learnings this afternoon. So we are now at the end of our session, but of course, we won't end this until we have another photo session. So let me note that earlier, when we were starting, we were just around 60 participants, and now even we're 20 minutes over time, and we're sorry for that. We are still at 82. So there are a lot of interest really from each of the participants who are staying. So thank you very much for staying. So please turn on your cameras, give us your joyful mood. Maybe what is the mood after receiving all this information from our speaker. And so we call this the freestyle photo session. So maybe you can give us a thumbs up, or a heart, or peace. So we will so how many participants? We have 82, so maybe we have to call in 5 times. So everyone, if you can, please turn on your camera. Again, you may use the virtual background if you want to, and we'll have another photo opportunity. So ready, freestyle. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's set 1, set 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, set 3. 1, 2, 3. Set 4. 1, 2, 3. And set 5. 1, 2, 3. And there. Okay, so many smiles and so many good gestures that we have. So before you go, please, we are now posting on the screen the QR code for our post-training feedback form and attendance check. So we all know that this is a training program, so we have to check in every time and so that we can award your certificates later on. So please accomplish the post-training feedback form. This will also serve as your attendance check. Please fill it correctly, especially your name. And your feedback is invaluable in helping us improve our future sessions. And please take a few minutes to complete the form, which you can access using the link also that is shared in the chat. So there's a QR code on the screen. There's also a link in the chat. So once again, our meeting is recorded, our session is recorded, and we will post it in the YouTube. And you may review the session for if you have missed any part of it. You may review it, and Kun Piapa, our program officer, will send you the email with the links of the YouTube video, of the feedback form, and the materials in our Google Drive, so you can refer to it. So you can access it later on. And lastly, I'm showing the next slide. Please don't forget to join us for the next session, which the topic is about understanding the school food environment and the role of school canteen in making healthy food choices. So I see there are still very active in the chat box. So maybe there are some concerns that are relevant to this topic. So you can reserve also, and you can ask our next speaker, also from the Simeo Regional Center for Food and Nutrition, Simeo RecFon, Dr. Dwi Nastiti Iswarawanti. So our expert for next week. So once again, we're now closing the second session of our capacity building for our school lunch improvement at 81 participants, still very active. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you in the next session, which is on Monday, 19 August 2024. At the same time, 3:00 p.m. Indo-China time or Bangkok time or Indonesia time. And for the Philippines, Malaysia, and other countries from the GMT+8 time zone, it will be 4 p.m. at your time zone. But here at the GMT+7, it is 3:00 p.m. So thank you all once again for joining us. Have a great day and see you next session.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Pak Jos,
everyone.
Piapa.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you again, Dr.
Thank
Ade.
you so
Dr.
much.
Dalao.
Bye.
Anytime
Miss
you
Doctor,
want.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miss.
Thank you.
Terima kasih,
Thank you so
Pak.
much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih, Dokter Ade.
Sama-sama.
Dokter Ade, terima kasih banyak atas
Sama-sama,
materinya.
Pak. Selamat sore.
Sehat selalu.
Sama-sama, Pak. Sehat-sehat, Pak
Ya.
Didi. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much. Meet again next session.
Yes, thank you.
In the next session.
See you next Monday. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay,
Terima
goodbye.
kasih.
ค่ะ
ขอบคุณนะครับ
Goodbye. ขอบคุณครับ
Salamat.